Representative Chris Van Hollen is a Democrat from Maryland. He's a ranking member of the House Budget Committee. He was a member of the Super Committee on Deficit Reduction. He knows a lot, perhaps more than anybody but the president, in terms of the president's plans and his thoughts. So good to see you. Really nice to see you in person.
It's great to be here.
As you said, we're all running on fumes, and now we have to get on those fumes and solve this problem, because the market is right. It is a crisis. It has to be dealt with. But what I don't understand is, okay, a little bit of a change in the Senate, but essentially this is the same thing that we had before. So, deal failed then. Why is it going to happen now?
Well, there are a couple things. First of all, a lot of the Republicans in Congress have been focused primarily on trying to defeat the president. Well, the president was just reelected, so maybe we can move beyond that objective. The second is the structure of the situation. I mean, the fiscal cliff creates big risks. It also creates opportunities because not resolving the fiscal cliff will create problems for the country. We need to focus on two things. We need to accelerate the recovery, and we need to act now to come up with a balanced long-term plan to reduce the deficit.
All right, and obviously those are, well, how we do that is the big question. Now, John Boehner had something to say today about revenue. And by revenue, everybody, we're talking about, well, that's the whole point. There's different things you could be talking about in revenue, everyone, not just additional tax revenues. Here's John Boehner.
There will be many who will say that with the election over, we should confront the first of these challenges by simply letting the top two tax rates expire and pushing the sequester off to some other date. You know, that might get us out of town, but it won't get us out of the problem, and it will also hurt our economy. Because the American people expect us to find common ground, we're willing to accept some additional revenues via tax reform.
All right, via tax reform. Now, when I hear that and I hear John Boehner say it, I don't hear I'm okay letting taxes go up on some people. I hear I'm okay closing loopholes and deductions where some higher income may pay more than others.
Right.
Is that a deal that you could work with?
Well, you just put your finger on the key issue. The question is, what is Speaker Boehner saying? Is he really talking about compromise and a balanced approach, or is he talking about what he used to talk about and Republicans have claimed, which is another round of tax breaks for very wealthy people will somehow trickle down, magically boost the economy so much that it will pay for itself and not increase the deficit? We know that doesn't work. And if that's what Speaker Boehner is talking about, then really it's not going anywhere. It's not a balanced approach. Now, if he's talking about what we call genuine Congressional Budget Office scored revenue, to be wonkish about it, that's a different story. And if that's the case, I'd love to see his proposal. The president has put his proposal on the table for revenue. Let's see Speaker Boehner's revenue proposal. He talks about wanting to do this in the open. Let's do it. Let's see it.
Right. Well, of course, he and the president had a deal, and, you know, fingers can point all kinds of ways, but that deal failed. So, I mean, let's hope they can. But let me ask you this. Who's going to take the lead in negotiations on your side? Is it going to be somebody who has been traditionally rather polarizing, like Nancy Pelosi, or is it going to be someone else?
Well, I should say, and I think this has been well reported, that during the talks between the Speaker and the President, Leader Pelosi was willing to support whatever compromise they came up with it.
Right.
But I think that remains to be seen exactly who's going to be the negotiator or negotiators.
Yes.
Obviously, the White House has to be engaged, and I think the President will make clear, as he already has in his acceptance speech last night, that we need to compromise. We need to come together on these issues. It is important to know the President does have a plan on this issue. It's been sitting in front of the Congress for a year. Republicans keep saying he doesn't have one. It's just they don't like the president's plan that he's put forward. It does take the balanced approach.
Which plan is this?
This is the plan to reduce the deficit and eliminate the sequester over a 10-year period by $4 trillion through a combination of cuts and revenue. And he's very clear on how he generates
But he didn't
revenue.
back Simpson-Bowles, which had the same plan.
He did not back all the specific recommendations of Simpson-Bowles, but the framework of his proposal, which is a mix of cuts and revenue, is much closer to Simpson-Bowles than anything the Republicans have put on the table.
So will the president negotiate this himself? That's the question. Because part of the reason that a lot of people were upset with him, right, part of the reason that the country was not split in half, but was split on this election, was because it seems other people got the job of doing the actual nitty-gritty, doing the negotiation. Is that going to change this time?
I think the president will be directly involved. He was involved, of course, in the conversations with Speaker Boehner.
Yes, indeed.
And I would say that, you know, while this was a kind of close election, the reality is the president had a decisive victory. And the president is very clear on this point, that this was a choice election. In fact, that's the one thing he and Mitt Romney agreed on, right? You can be sure that if Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan had won, they'd say they have a mandate for imposing the Ryan-Romney budget. The president talked about this issue. He says we need to ask higher income individuals to pay more by allowing the rates to return to Clinton-era levels to generate revenue as part of the solution, along with cuts to reducing the deficit. So it's not as if this hasn't been an important part of the campaign argument, so we'll have to see how this goes.
All right, well, I'll look forward to talking to you a lot more about it, because you know what investors are telling me? You guys got to go about 4 times bigger than you're even thinking of going.
I think we should go big, and I think the framework of the bipartisan commissions is exactly right, and it would be great if our Republican colleagues would adopt that. As you know, people like Grover Norquist have said that that's just, you know, a subterfuge to raise taxes on the American people, when in fact it's a balanced approach to getting the job done.
All right, well, good to see you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And still to come, the key